Maybe I'm sane and the conspiracy is real. And the voices in my head are telling me how I should feel. I could make you think I'm better, but I'd have to just pretend. So until the doctor says I'm cured, I guess I'll have to spend another day at Quirewood, psychiatric neighborhood. Not really bad, not really good, but I'd still leave here if I...
The idea of doing a musical, for me, goes back to high school, really. I did a lot of, musical theater in high school, and as I was doing it, all these ideas kind of floated through my head for a movie musical about a high school putting on a show, which actually kind of became a thing with some Disney Channel thing around the same time. But mine was realistic and dark, and at one point in college, I, wrote a whole musical based on those experiences, and it was a fun script to write. Just, figuring out, okay, we'll put a song here, and just coming up with different ways to implement songs in the script. And it was a movie I kind of legitimately wanted to make for a while, but that was back during the period where I just didn't know anybody who could help me and just had no way of making any movie, let alone a musical. So, flash forward, last day of production on Space People 2. I think just between takes, Hannah was just, while in costume as Lady Gravitox, singing songs from Avenue Q and other shows. I mean, that's what theater people do, if you've ever been around them. And Ribbon Girl was there, she was singing along too, and somehow or another in all that, the subject came up of doing a musical. And I mentioned, well, I wrote a musical years ago. It's something I've had an interest in doing. And on top of that, like the previous summer, Riven and I had done a 48-hour film project where she'd brought in her friend Brian Niedermeyer to compose a musical score for that. And I'd met him, and he talked about how he was interested in helping with my film. So it all just came together at the right time. And so after Space People 2 premiered, the four of us got on a Facebook chat and we started throwing ideas around. Just, we all want to do a musical, so all right, let's come up with something. What kind of musical can we make? And Hannah was the first one to throw out an idea. She thought it would be fun to do a musical set in a mental hospital. And this was something that actually came from her real life. She, when she was younger, had experiences going in and out of mental hospitals. Some good experiences, a lot of bad experiences. And it was something she always thought could inspire some kind of script. And we all thought that could be a musical, sure. So, we threw around a few ideas, and then about a month later, Hannah and Riven and I got together and just hashed out who the characters were, what some of the songs would be. We came up with the name Quirewood for the mental hospital, which, Hannah just threw out the word choir with a QU, which is just some obscure term, and Riven commented that, well, that's like choir, like people singing, and then we were just like, okay, yeah, then that has to be the name of it. So it became the name of the mental hospital in the movie, became Quirewood, and that's what we named the movie. And so after a couple of sessions of brainstorming ideas, I took everything we discussed, we had it all in an outline, and I wrote a draft of the screenplay for Quirewood the Musical. And the funny thing is, originally, it seemed like kind of a smaller scale sort of film compared with something like Space People. It was all at one location, almost entirely indoors. There were a lot of characters, but only a few major characters. The first draft of the script wasn't very long, so, it seemed like it'd, be a fairly large project with the music, but nothing huge. But I was wrong on it being a smaller scale project. This was the biggest thing we ever attempted. I think at the time we were writing the script, I thought, maybe it would take a little over a year to finish. It took 2.5 years.
You won't be leaving Quirewood anytime soon.
It was a lot of fun collaborating with other people, to be honest. Having a project that I was excited about, but I knew that other people were every bit as excited about. And it was a really different kind of thing for me. Everything I've done up to that point had been kind of strictly comedy, and this had a lot more drama in it. Hannah told a lot of real harrowing stories about her times in mental institutions, and it was important to her that the film have some sort of truth to it. And I felt like I was under pressure to be true to her experiences. I mean, we have a doctor who's abusive to patients. We have a suicidal transgender patient. There's a lot of really heavy stuff in this movie, and I mean, there were times that I'm thinking, do you really think I'm the person to be writing and directing this? The most dramatic thing I did before was what, like, I don't know, in Revenge of the Animals, when I'm guilty that I led people to their deaths, but even that just ended up being more funny than anything in execution. But so Quirewood was something very different from anything I'd ever done before, and really anything I've done since. And so once we had the script, we assembled a cast, brought in a lot more new people in with this one, because we needed people who not only could act, but who also could sing.
It was unlike any other film I've ever done because it was a very ambitious project, and it spanned I think at least 6 months, if not longer. And the cool thing about that was that you got to know the cast really well. And just the people that were cast were just really nice and really unique, fun people. And it was a really fun experience.
In Quirewood, I played a very different role from what I usually do. I played a patient with severe mental illness called infantile disorder. Most of the characters I play are very strong women that nobody would fool around with. And here I was, a character that was totally vulnerable. And I think that's why I enjoyed playing it.
And so, of course, before we could film anything, all of the music had to be written and rehearsed. And so we spent the whole summer of 2017 basically rehearsing and developing the music for Quirewood. It was like Brian would come up with a demo with himself singing on the piano and send that out to us.
Just in case you forgot, I'm the doctor and you're not. And I say you get no vacation from a proper medication.
And then, I'd go to their apartment a few days a week, and the actors would come, and it was so exciting to see it come together. I wrote lyrics for all the songs when I was writing the script, just put them in where they seemed natural. But it's like I don't really have the capability of coming up with, melodies and harmonies and all that. So then to hear the actors singing these songs was just so cool. That was just such an amazing summer going through that whole process. And as they would rehearse, I would, get ideas in my head for how to film these musical numbers. It felt like a bigger project than anything else I'd ever done. So many people were involved with it right from the get-go. It was just a really exciting process. At the end of the summer, we got together to record the music. One of our actors, Renee, had a recording studio in her home that she let us use. And I don't even know what the plan was if she hadn't offered that. But, I mean, the music just ended up sounding so amazing.
We don't mean to be rude, but didn't they at least used to serve us some decent...
It just, raised the production value of the movie that much more. And another big challenge with Quirewood was finding a location, because the whole thing is set in a mental hospital, and you can't just walk into a mental hospital and film. So it worked out that another one of our actors, Sherry Lee, worked in a nursing home at the time that had a floor that was mostly used for storage and basically just completely empty on weekends. Actually, a film that I acted in shot on that floor earlier the same year, Dr. Truscott. But after, a few months of trying to figure things out, we were able to get that nursing home to let us film on their 4th floor. So, after a long pre-production period, we finally started shooting Quirewood in October of 2017. I mean, at this point, it had been almost a year since we were shooting Space People 2 and first started talking about doing a musical. And, I had several years of experience making films at this point, but Quirewood just presented all kinds of new challenges. I mean, there's no one you can talk to about doing a feature-length musical with basically a minimal budget, because no one does that. I mean, if anyone does make an independent musical, they probably have a bigger budget and more resources than we had, but, this is after the, cartoon movie, the sci-fi films, and now a musical. It's fun to do the impossible. Walt Disney said that. Yeah, there was a lot going on with Quirewood. We had a gigantic cast. And I mean, it was probably about the same number of people as were in Space People 2, but in Quirewood, like, the majority of the cast was in what felt like every scene. There were just, so many scenes where, this person has a line and this person has a line, so these people all need to be here. And sometimes it just vaguely mentions the patients and the staff, so I mean, we had to bring in extras to play hospital staff.
I was at an audition for another project and I ran into Mary Higgins, a friend of mine from Master Class, and she had mentioned that she was working on a film, a musical with Adam, and Adam needed some background actors to populate his psychiatric clinic. So I showed up at the time and date that Mary mentioned for Adam's next filming session, and he promptly made me an orderly in his psychiatric clinic. He walked me through the scene since I hadn't seen the script and basically did whatever it was he needed me to do. He actually gave me a couple of lines in a scene, turning me into a supporting actor, which was a lot of fun.
You can't take my puzzle.
Olivia, we're having art time now. You can do the puzzle later.
Adam really needed a character as a nurse. So Mary here, she said, well, Mary, why don't you come with me and see if you would fit the character as the nurse.
And then you'd have days when one person doesn't show up or cancels last minute, and then you have to completely shift gears because everyone else is there. So, it would just be like, okay, we can't do these scenes, well, let's do this scene instead. We have everyone for this. It was just constantly shifting around. And I mean, on top of that, filming a musical number is really hard. We'd be playing back the basic versions of the songs that had been recorded at that point off my phone, and we'd have to have the actors lip sync to this much of the song, and then all right, we'd figure out what the next frame is going to be, and then all right, do this much of the song. And I got really ambitious with my cinematography. I did a lot of handheld moving with the camera to try to, just almost like a dance, like get into the rhythm of the song, just let the music flow. And for the opening number, I decided to do this one continuous shot going up and down the hallway where moving the camera, and I mean, it just took a few hours to do. We rehearsed it over and over and then did about 12 takes. We had to have all the actors hit all these moments, and it was just, it goes on for I think about 2.5 minutes. I mean, that was so much fun. I mean, a lot of the musical numbers, like, Psycho Carl,
Be afraid of Psycho Carl,
Queen of Spain,
no one believes.
Side effects may include
dizziness, nausea, vomiting, insomnia, loss of hearing, loss of sight, make you have to pee all night.
Hard one to resist.
It'll be you and me, us together once and free.
I mean, they were just so much fun, especially some of the ones that would have fantasy sequences that we'd go into. It was just, just coming up with visuals to go with songs was just, it's like, I'm focusing on the positive. There was a lot of hard work that went into this. It was very stressful. I mean, all told, the production of it took about 6 months, from October 17 to March 18. And we pushed through and we got it done. So we wrapped production around the middle of March, and then I had a lot of it edited by that point. So within a couple of weeks, I was able to put together a full cut of it, and so we were done. Except no, we were not done, because then Brian and Renee had to go and orchestrate all the music. On set, we had just used pretty basic versions of the songs with, the actors' vocals and piano accompaniment, or some, very basic stripped down versions of them. So now they had to go in and fully orchestrate all 30 songs and also compose a whole score. And I don't think anyone quite anticipated how much work all of that was going to be, because it ended up taking over a year from when we wrapped the actual production to when the music was finished. It's pretty much edited together, waiting on the music, hoping, maybe late summer premiere, don't know for sure at this point, but
yeah. Do you have any plans for after Quirewood?
Not really. I was in the point where I'm starting to think I should be coming up with something, because this is winding down. I mean, my part in it, all I really have to do is, put the music together once I get that.
But I'm not sure. I've spent a couple of years doing big projects. I'm a little burned out. I mean,
So I found myself in this weird position where Quirewood was not done. It had not premiered yet, but there was nothing I myself could do to work on it because, you know, it was off to the musicians at that point. So I was really kind of in this weird limbo where I was like, do I start a new project or what? I made shorter films when I was starting out, thinking that they were a way to build up to feature films. So once I was up to things like Revenge of the Animals, my mindset was, okay, now I do feature films. I'm not going to do short films anymore. But as 2018 wore along and it became increasingly clear that Quirewood was not going to be finished anytime soon, but it would be finished at some point, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to get started on any larger scale project, I started to think maybe now would be a good time to try to do a shorter film. And so around this time I talked to Rebecca Howland, and she brought up the old script that I had written 8 years earlier about the film crew that's shooting in a haunted house. And I looked back at that script and it was really good. And, you know, I thought about it for a week or so, and then I was just like, yeah, I think I want to do this. And so, yeah, years earlier when we'd first tried to do it, we had all kinds of issues getting actors and locations, but at this point, I'd built up a sizable network that when I sent out an email saying, hey, I'm thinking of doing a short film, who wants to be in it? I had more people interested than I could even cast. I mean, I couldn't even include everybody who wanted to be in it because there were only a limited number of roles. So that became Lights, Camera, Terror.
Leave that on. I want to leave that on for this scene.
The lens cap?
Oh, is that what that's called? Yeah, leave that thing on.
If this is on, we won't see anything.
That's okay. It's a nighttime scene. It's supposed to be dark.
Dimitra Papadinas, one of the actors I'd worked with a few times, let us use her house, this big, old, spooky house in Loudon, New Hampshire, which was just perfect for what I'd envisioned. And so the script was only about 25 pages, so other than the opening scene, which was at a different location, we shot the whole thing over one weekend. And it was a fun script to do. I mean, just people getting violently killed in hilarious ways. It's just fun stuff to film.
It was my first time filming in front of a green screen. It was my first time providing voiceover for a cat.
Christina.
And that was a lot of fun.
And like, the beauty of it all, though, was that at the end of that weekend, we were done. It didn't drag on for months and months. I just remember Sunday night at around 8 p.m. just being like, we're done with the whole movie. How is that possible? You know, this is coming off Revenge of the Animals, Two Space Peoples, and Quirewood, which just went on and on for months longer than scheduled. And, you know, we'd finish the end of the day. It's like, all right, I guess we'll have to finish these scenes sometimes. And then Lights, Camera, Terror, just like Saturday, Sunday, boom, we're done. And then within another month, the whole thing is edited. So that was like actually kind of really nice and refreshing after all those years of really complex features to get a more simpler short film done. So Lights, Camera, Terror was cast, shot, edited, premiered for the cast, screened in a festival, and won an award before Quirewood was finally finished. But right around the time it was done, we started seeing some real progress on the music. I remember when Renee sent me the folder full of mostly finished versions of all the songs, and I started, you know, putting them into the project file and editing and seeing these scenes that I'd seen dozens of times, but with full orchestration. It was just so cool to see. And so over the spring of 2019, we refined the music, got the score done, and then finally, in June 2019, Quirewood was finished. It had been like over 2 years since we got started on it. It was just insane. And so we had our premiere at the end of July, and we had another great turnout. And wow, this is a lot of people here. This is great. So, welcome everyone to the premiere of Quirewood the musical. The film came out good. I mean, it's not perfect. I don't think it ever could have been, just considering how much of an ordeal we were taking on with so few resources, but for what we had to work with, the music is great, the acting is great, some of the characters are so strong. I was worried, going into it that, my more comedic style would clash with the more dramatic stuff that Hannah wanted to do, but so many people who've seen it have said that the way it blends comedy and drama worked really well and was really smooth.
And it was a lot of fun being on that set with those people and involved in such an intense and worthwhile project.
It was amazing to see this all pulled together at the hospital, and even more amazing to see the film.
Quirewood the musical. My only regret is that I didn't get to sing in it.
Quirewood got into a couple of festivals, not as many as we hoped. I think the 2-hour runtime might have held it back a bit, because even the festivals that did screen it kind of made it seem like they had a hard time programming it because it was so long. But we did actually fly out to Los Angeles to present Quirewood at the Awareness Film Festival. It, didn't have a huge audience out there, but it was exciting just to go out there and do it, and I'm hoping to go back there again. It's a film that I hope it finds more of an audience at some point, because it's got a great soundtrack. It's just a great, very unique, one-of-a-kind thing that I'm glad to have worked on.